Shalom, Esther Gidoyot. It's Monday, July 4th. This is Africa 54.
West African leaders lift economic sanctions on Mali and Burkina Faso. But both nations remain suspended by the Economic Community of West African States. Pope Francis greets the Congolese community in Rome, wishing them peace and joy in an energetic ceremony in St. Peter's Basilica. And rhinos are again roaming Mozambique as the Peace Parks Foundation conducts a 2-year operation to replenish the mammoth animal in the West African nation.
West African leaders have lifted economic sanctions on Mali. The move by the leaders of the Economic Community of West African States on Sunday came after Mali's military leaders submitted a proposal for a transition to democracy within 24 months and published a new electoral law. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
ECOWAS resolved to lift all economic and financial sanctions imposed on Mali and Burkina Faso. However, those countries remain suspended from the regional bloc, according to Jean-Claude Cassi, an Ivorian politician who has been serving as president of the ECOWAS Commission.
The head of state took the following decision. The first decided to lift all the economic and financial sanctions that were taken on January 9, 2022. That means essentially the closure of the border and the freeze of the financial asset. So those sanctions are lifted.
In lifting the sanctions against Mali and Burkina Faso, leaders attending the summit in Accra accepted transition plans presented by military authorities in those countries.
Authority of Burkina Faso have made a new proposal, which is now to have the transition in Burkina last for 24 months, starting July 1st. So this is a progress that has been made. And as I said, with the freedom of President Kabore, the head of state now decided to took the following decision. First is to remove the economic and financial sanctions that were imposed to Burkina Faso on 25th March 2022.
Mali was severely sanctioned by ECOWAS in January, shutting down most commerce with the country and closing its land and air borders with other countries in the bloc. The measures have crippled Mali's economy, raising humanitarian concerns amid widespread suffering. The wave of military coups in West Africa began in August 2020 when Colonel Assimi Goïta and other soldiers overthrew Mali's democratically elected president. 9 months later, he carried out a second coup, dismissing the country's civilian transitional leader and assuming the presidency himself. Guinea, the third country under sanctions, received no reprieve because it did not submit a positive roadmap towards elections, adding that the suspension of all the three nations from ECOWAS remains in force until they hold elections. ECOWAS named a new mediator for Guinea, Benin's former president Yaya Boni, and it is expected to receive a new timetable for its elections by the end of the month. Mutinous soldiers deposed Guinea's president in September 2021, and Burkina Faso's leader, Rochamaka Christian Kabore, was ousted in January 2022. The political upheaval came as many observers started to think that military power grabs were a thing of the past in West Africa, a region that faces growing danger from Islamic extremists. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Libyan protesters say they will continue demonstrating until all the ruling elite surrender power. Rallies in most main cities at the weekend culminated in a crowd storming and torching parts of the parliament building. Protest movement officials say they will increase its campaign from Sunday, urging demonstrators to set up tents in city squares and practice civil disobedience until they achieve their goal of ousting political institutions and holding new elections. Protesters had held the biggest rally in Tripoli for years, chanting slogans against the feuding political elite as demonstrators blocked off roads in Benghazi and Misrata and set fire to government buildings in Seba and Karabuli. South African state power utility ESCOM says it will extend daily power cuts all this week as generation capacity shortage continues. Striking workers' delay in maintenance and old thermal power plants are forcing the monopoly power supplier of South Africa to implement one of the worst power cuts in more than 2 years. ESCOM says that as the generation capacity shortages persist over the next few weeks, load shedding will continue to be implemented at various stages. The company is also cautioning that it will take a few weeks for the power generation system to fully recover to pre-strike levels. Officials in Yemen say a massive pile of waste, including dangerous untreated medical waste, is posing a serious threat to the environment and water supplies just outside the capital, Sana'a. Lorraine Anthony has the details.
At a landfill near the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, a truck unloads bags of trash onto a seemingly endless sea of garbage. Close by, people stand readied with bags to collect any recyclables they can find amid the piles of waste. The Al Azraqain landfill receives hundreds of tons of trash a day, including dangerous, untreated medical waste generated by hospitals in Sana'a. More than 7 years of conflict in Yemen have devastated the economy, displaced millions, and wreaked havoc on the environment. Bahauddin Al-Hajj is the data manager at the landfill.
We have no solution but to bury the medical waste with the garbage. It's mixed with garbage and buried. This may cause issues in the future, health issues. Chemicals may leak into the groundwater, meaning this will affect the environment. This is one of the biggest threats to the environment.
Waste management officials in Sana'a say Saudi-led airstrikes destroyed a medical waste processing incinerator at the landfill site in 2015. Houthi administrators say they are looking for support from NGOs to rebuild the facility. In 2021, the United Nations Development Programme inaugurated a waste-to-energy system in Yemen in a bid to revolutionise the governorate's approach to addressing waste management. The plant, built southwest of the capital, is expected to transform up to 5 tonnes of solid waste a day. But that's only a fraction of the 1,870 tonnes of waste dumped at Al Azraqain. Yemen's warring sides, in a major breakthrough, agreed this month on a 2-month truce that began on April 2nd, the first since 2016. The deal eased a coalition blockade on areas held by the Houthis, who ousted former President Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi's government from the capital in late 2014.
Lorraine Anthony of Reuters with that report. In the northwest of Ethiopia's Afar region, landmines left over from the 19-month Tigray conflict are making herders struggle with a record-breaking drought even deadlier. Landmines are killing children and livestock and making people afraid to collect water despite the drought. Henry Wilkins reports from Chifra, Ethiopia.
The battles between Ethiopian government-aligned troops and Tigrayan forces may have stopped, but herders in western Afar region are left fighting for survival. The record drought in the Horn of Africa that's killed millions of livestock has been made worse by landmines left by combatants. Herder Hussein Arebti Hassen's 4-year-old daughter was injured by a landmine, and they're also killing his animals.
Landmines are everywhere around here, and many animals have died because they've stepped on them. Goats stand on them and they explode.
Landmines and other explosives are so common here that the locals use the wood from the crates as building materials. 9-year-old Ali Amar says his 10-year-old friend was killed by a landmine while they were herding goats together.
I left here with my friend to go and tend to the goats. We were just there to take care of the goats, but my friend died. He was playing, throwing stones at the landmine. Then he picked it up and threw it at the ground.
Ali was also injured. His father says landmines make them all afraid to collect water, despite the drought.
There is a serious drought here. It is difficult both for the people and the animals. We don't know what we'll do. I must spend a lot of money to buy food for both our family and our animals. We need the landmines removed from the area where we used to live.
After speaking with locals, VOA was unable to establish which side in the conflict was responsible for laying the mines. Bekele Gonfa runs a non-profit in Addis Ababa to support landmine victims. He says people in mined areas of Ethiopia, like Chifra, need help.
Number one is the medical treatment, and then they've been provided with psychosocial support, which includes peer counseling. Particularly, that's what our organization is basically engaged in and operating in. The public and the community has to be given mine risk education in order to really keep themselves away from the mines.
But with the ongoing droughts, people in Chifra have little choice in risking landmines to find food for their animals and collect water for their survival. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Chifra, Ethiopia.
As Kenya prepares for a highly contested presidential election in August, many worry about a repeat of deadly violence of past polls. A Kenyan group known as Mothers of Victims and Survivors Network is calling on all sides to maintain peace during this year's vote. Juma Majanga reports from Nairobi.
Bena Buluma, also known as Mama Victor, is holding on to the only memories left of her two sons at her makeshift home in Nairobi's Mathare informal settlements. Election time brings painful memories to the 48-year-old widow. On August 9, 2017, her sons Bernard and Victor Okoth, both young men, were shot dead following a police crackdown on election protests in the area just a day after the presidential polls. 5 years later, the killers still have not been held accountable.
If my sons had killed someone on the road, they would have been arrested. But the police who killed my sons have not been arrested to date. That's what pains me the most. I ask myself why. They are all human beings, and the law should serve equally.
Mathare, one of the biggest slums in Africa, with some of the most densely populated poor neighborhoods in Nairobi, has remained a constant hotspot of election violence.
Every time we have elections, they know what is our issues, but they have not actualized. So bringing your manifesto to say that you bring water, you do this, then it just brings horizontal violence because you're already living in a poor, it's violence. It is violence, living in it, you know?
Mama Victor founded the group of Mothers of Victims and Survivors Network to help families seek justice. The group has petitioned election authorities and participants in the August presidential election to ensure peace during polls.
Tunataka peaceful election. We want a peaceful election, and that's not all. As mothers of victims, we want justice for our children and compensation.
The Kenyan police have been accused of using excessive force in handling past election-related protests. With just over a month to the general elections, the National Police Service says it is prepared to provide a secure environment for the polls to run peacefully. In a statement to VOA, police spokesperson Bruno Shioso said steps have been taken to improve security, including new election security training and additional equipment for officers. Past elections in Kenya have been marred by deadly violence. In the most notorious incident, more than 1,100 people were killed in riots and attacks after the disputed 2007 vote. But as the clock ticks toward this year's balloting, observers are cautiously optimistic that the polls will be peaceful. Juma Majanga for VOA News, Nairobi.
Still to come, changes are expected in how the U.S. treats migrants along the southern border. But first, let's check in with Hedy Adams on what's coming up on Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
On our special edition of Straight Talk Africa, South Sudan commemorates 11 years of independence. Has the promise of a new dawn for Africa's youngest nation been realized? What does the future hold for the people of South Sudan? We'll bring you in-depth analysis and reporting from the South Sudanese capital, Juba, as we discuss South Sudan, the road to democracy, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
The Democratic Republic of Congo on Monday is declaring its latest Ebola outbreak over, according to the World Health Organization. The announcement comes more than 2 months after the virus re-emerged in the country's northwest. And Nigerian police say they have rescued at least 77 people, including children, from a church basement in Ondo State. Pope Francis greeted the Congolese community in Rome on Sunday after being unable to travel to Congo. Borrowing words from their native languages, he wished them peace and joy in an especially vibrant ceremony in St. Peter's Basilica. Francis, 85, was supposed to make a pilgrimage to Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan in early July. But the persistent knee pain that has seen him using a wheelchair or a cane in recent weeks made the trip impossible, at least for now. Instead, some 2,000 Congolese or descendants of Congolese joined the Pope in Mass at the Vatican on Sunday. Prayers by the faithful were recited in Swahili, Lingala, Shiloba, and Kikongo languages of the Congolese people. Egypt's first electrified light rail transit system, jointly built by Chinese and Egyptian companies, is underway. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi took the first ride on the LRT at its inauguration ceremony on Sunday, which was also attended by Egyptian Prime Minister and the Chinese ambassador to Egypt. The project is the result of a $1.24 billion U.S. contract signed in August 2017. The rail project connects the new administrative capital being constructed east of Cairo with surrounding distant new cities and districts. Egyptian Transport Minister Kamel El Wazir says the first phase of the LRT contains 22 trains and will serve 360,000 passengers each day. All around the world, students are celebrating their graduations, even in Ukraine. But as Licia Bacalès reports, with a country in the middle of a war, graduations look and feel different. Anna Rice narrates.
The city of Chernihiv in northern Ukraine has been shelled since the war began. High schooler Olga Babinets remembers attending school the day before Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th. She did not return again until April.
Before that, we had this long break. All classes were put on pause.
Olga says no one is talking about a prom or a graduation ceremony anymore.
We already had a spot booked for the prom, the city cultural center. We were all supposed to come there to celebrate, all dressed up and whatnot.
Nothing here is like it was before the war. These graduation photos taken by Stanislav Senik illustrate the realities of growing up during wartime.
This is history, and it's being written right now. I'm sure that it would be important to save these moments in photo albums, both for the Ukrainian people and for the graduates.
But some schools, like this one in Kiev, are also trying to preserve a sense of normalcy. Ukrainian language teacher and winner of the Ukrainian Global Teachers Prize 2021, Artur Predakov, is watching his class graduate. His school chose a hybrid graduation format.
12 graduates are happy to come to the school in person. Their families, their relatives are all in Kyiv. And 8 more graduates are going to participate in the ceremony online.
They discussed whether it was even appropriate to hold a ceremony and celebration at such a time.
No one wants a carnival. No one wants a red carpet or special effects, stuff like that. No one has even mentioned that.
In Mykolaiv, intense shelling forced administrators to hold a Zoom ceremony.
We waited until the very last moment in early May. We still believed most of the children and teachers would come back home. But then the shelling intensified in this area specifically, so we realized we can't do any in-person event.
Olga Babinets says she regrets they did not have a graduation party. But she adds there are more important things.
It's a shame this was taken away from us, but we are happy we're alive and healthy. We have realized lately there is nothing more important than that.
Falesia Bakalets, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Changes are expected in how the U.S. treats migrants along America's southern border after the Supreme Court sided with the Biden administration's push to terminate a Trump-era policy that forced migrants to await their immigration court dates on the Mexican side of the border. As VOA's Arasha Basadi reports, last week's ruling coincided with news that more than 50 migrants had died in a trailer truck abandoned in Texas.
Last week in San Antonio, Texas, a city worker alerted law enforcement to what would become one of the deadliest tragedies in the history of people crossing into the United States. Federal authorities charged 4 men in the deadly smuggling operation where migrants packed into a trailer had neither water nor air conditioning when the driver abandoned them before fleeing on foot. This all comes in the same week that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled against a Trump-era policy called Migrant Protection Protocols, or MPP, more commonly known as Remain in Mexico. Overruling the decision hands a win to President Joe Biden and signals the end of a policy that forced thousands of migrants to wait in Mexico pending U.S. courts processing their cases, often leading to extreme and sometimes hazardous measures taken to reach U.S. soil.
We were very pleased with the Supreme Court's decision, supporting our commitment to end the Remain in Mexico program, which has endemic flaws and causes unjustifiable human tragedy. We need to wait until the Supreme Court's decision is actually communicated to the lower court.
A process Mayorkas says could take several weeks. The ruling comes as hundreds of thousands of migrants this year have sought to cross into the United States through its southern border. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says state law enforcement will increase truck checkpoints to avoid a future tragedy like the one in San Antonio. He also says the Biden administration shoulders the blame.
Many of these deaths could be prevented if Biden simply fully funded the Border Patrol operation of the United States of America and implemented the policies that the Border Patrol needs in order to do their real job. And the real job is not the paper processing work that they've been assigned to do. The real job is both to secure the border as well as to do things like inspect the vehicle that was carrying those people who lost their lives.
While the Remain in Mexico policy appears soon to end, another controversial Trump-era policy that has blocked many migrants from entering the U.S., part of a public health measure in response to the coronavirus pandemic, remains in effect. Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador this week at a news conference announced plans to meet with President Biden to discuss migration July 12th. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
To Southern Africa now, where rhinos are again roaming open spaces of Mozambique. The Peace Parks Foundation Conservation Group is conducting an operation that aims to relocate over 40 rhinos in the next 2 years to Mozambique. Clara Frank has more.
Over 4 decades after they became extinct locally, rhinos are roaming again in the wilds of Mozambique, which is bringing endangered species from South Africa in efforts to breathe new life into its parks and boost local tourism. A group of rangers captured, sedated, and moved black and white rhinos over 1,000 miles to Mozambique's Zinabi National Park, which has over 400,000 hectares and more than 2,300 other reintroduced animals.
Rhinos have been extinct in Zinabi for many years, at least 60 or 70 years. And we're basically seeing a return of rhinos to that area. They're important to the ecosystem. which is one of the reasons why we're moving them all this distance and doing all this effort to get them there. So you just come along the fence, you'll see him. He's on the eastern side of the camp.
The Peace Parks Foundation Conservation is conducting the operation and aims to relocate over 40 rhinos over the next 2 years to the East African nation. PPF's project manager, Anthony Alexander, says the group has already brought in certain predators and many elephants to the park.
It's very exciting now to complete the presence of historical species in the park.
Mozambican officials said in a statement that this historic translocation will also be beneficial for the country's emerging ecotourism industry. Mozambique's wildlife numbers were badly hit by a 15-year civil war that ended in 1992 and by poaching. Clara Frank, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. We invite you to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.